The 4% rule is too high. It should now be 1.9%. Oh, what? What? I scared Pablo. So I'm just sitting here minding my business, looking at some emails people sent to me, firing off some emails. And my man Savaz sent me this. I think it's Savaz sent me this. 4% retirement spending rule may be too high. Could you get by on 1.9%? And like I've seen these a million times, that, because I follow Wade Pfau and David Blanchett and whatnot. But this is from Mark Holbert. I said okay, and so I follow Mark. I like Mark Holbert stuff. I think the Holbert Digest. I can't remember. Anyway, so I said let me check this out, see if there's a new from Wade or Blanchett. But this is actually different. I said okay, interesting. So we got this lady who's panicked, and I want to go into it here. Retirees and near retirees have known for some time that the famed 4% rule needs to be revised downwards. That's not true. I've actually, another guy sent me something on Mr. Money Mustache's article from a few years back, talk about the 4% rule as if it's, I was going to do an article, video on it, but I can't because let me stop. I just can't do it. I'm trying not to be mean. All right, so would you believe a 1.9% rule? That's the conclusion of new research. And again, I'm thinking new research. Where's this new research? That replicates the original research that led to the 4% rule, but uses more realistic assumptions about our life expectancies in a more comprehensive historical data set. So I'm liking this so far. There's a couple things, look at me doing like the Trump, like, Rudy Giuliani, creepy, what do you say? Sleepy Joe. Call him Sniffy Joe Trump. Sleepy Joe, who cares? Don't call him Sniffy. Damn. All right, but anyway, I do like this. They replicate original research. I got a qualm with that. We'll get into here in just a second. But more realistic assumptions about our life expectancies, I challenge that. But I do like comprehensive historical data set, and more comprehensive. The implications are potentially devastating. All right, under the 4% rule, if you had $1 million, you could spend an inflation adjustment 40% each year. But under the new rules, you could spend an inflation adjustment 19% each year. So they've tweaked it. I like that, but they didn't tweak it where it should be tweaked, and I don't know why. I literally don't understand why. It's weird to me. But anyway, then we get. Oh, I love this. Oh, anyway, if it comes from the Centers for Retirement Research, you have to. It's kind of like if it comes from an Ivy League university. They're pushing an agenda. They're pushing propaganda. So if it comes from CRR, the Center for Retirement Research, where they say only 12% of workers have any retirement account in the first place, do not fall for that. I'm telling you, I haven't looked at this. I will. I guarantee there is a lot to be desired in that research. And in fact, I can almost guarantee you right now, I'll go on the limb and say they're not including brokerage accounts. They're not including brokerage accounts. Not including bank accounts. Not include people's Social Security, because Social Security is obviously a retirement account. So they're looking solely at 401ks. I can almost guarantee you that. But we'll find out. I'll do another video on that later. Because if it's from the Center for Retirement Research, it's suspect. Right out the gate. I'm on the front end to say that anymore. Because their stuff they're writing is suspect. It's getting worse, actually. It's really starting to piss me off. Here's Vanguard. According to the most recent analysis by Vanguard, only 15% of retirement accounts at Vanguard are worth even $250,000. We'll dive into that too, because if I know what Fidelity study did, they only looked at the ones they had, and they didn't even combine by Social Security numbers. So let's say I have a Schwab account, a Roth with $50,000, a Roth with an IRA with $200,000. Neither of those accounts would fall under Vanguard's thing of $250,000. Okay, but I have $250,000 if you combine them. And I don't know if Vanguard did that. I know Fidelity did that a couple years ago, and that pissed me off, pardon my French. All right, let's see. The just completed study comes with a much lower spending rate, was conducted by these guys from University of Arizona. Some guy at University of Missouri and some guy at Arizona. All right. Evidence from a broad sample of developed markets. I do like that. The research made some tweaks to Bill Bengen's 4% study. All All right. They accounted for longevity. First is accounting for longevity. They point out, based on actuarial data from Social Security, a 65-year-old couple retiring today has a nearly 1 in 4 chance at least one spouse surviving more than 30 years. All right. Well, we know Bengen did a 30 year. So a 1 in 4 probability of a couple who's married today, an actuarial probability of surviving beyond 30 years. Okay, well, Bengen used 30 years. So I guess they're going to put up the life expectancy a couple years. Okay, I find that silly, but whatever. We'll go with it. So they're expanding life expectancies. I'm going to do another video. One of my most influential videos I've ever done was Save Dead or Broke. And we'll do that here in a couple minutes. Anyway, the second case, this is silly right here, but this right here I like a lot. The second case of the much lower spending rate had an even bigger impact. The researchers relied on a much more comprehensive database of historical stocks, bonds, and bond returns, and inflation, using from 38 developed countries from 1890 to 2019. I like that a lot, actually. This has such a big impact on the researchers' finding because the U.S. has outperformed almost every other developed country over the last century. Unless you believe in more or less perpetual U.S. market exceptionalism, the market return on other countries are also relevant when forecasting the future course of our retirements. Now, I completely, 100% agree with that. 100%. You should look at everything because I think we got Japan in here someplace. Let me pause real quick. Professors refer specifically to Japan as an instructive example. By the end of the 1980s, its stock market had the highest market cap of any in the world, significantly greater than that of the U.S. It subsequently crashed, and it is today a third of where it was in 1989. I completely agree. Now, I don't know if that's including, I just don't know. It doesn't matter that much, frankly, but I completely agree. Japan is what you have to look at in terms of worst case scenarios, in my opinion. How can we be so sure that this Japanese experience is irrelevant to the U.S.? 100% agree, man. I 100% agree. All right. We can hope the U.S. will avoid a post-1989 Japanese-like fate, but hope is not a retirement strategy. And once you substitute hard data, according to this new research, you will adopt a spending rule well below 4%. All right, so I want to know, though, what do they use for inflation? If we're going to look at Japan's equity markets, are we going to look at Japan's inflation at the same time? Because we know that Japan's inflation was basically zero for the last 30 years. So if we're going to use their stock markets and their bond markets, well, you can't use the American inflation as well. And I haven't looked at the research. I don't even care because at the end of the day, I like that they're looking at all the different investment things out there, which is why you pay off your debt. Because what I always say is, the markets always do X, Y, Z. No, they didn't. They didn't do it in Russia. They didn't do it in Japan. They didn't do it in China. They didn't. We are the exception. Are we going to be the exception? I don't think so going forward. Anyway, but the one point in the column is what authors calculate the spending rule would be if you only wanted the same probability of financial ruin outliving your money as a 4% of the U.S. only data. Okay, but I wanted to point out something here. So these professors adjusted for longevity. I take issue, but okay, that's the small potatoes. I do like the fact they looked at returns on the world as a whole as opposed to just the U.S. No one in 1890 said, I'm going to put all my money in the United States stock market. No one did. They would have done it in UK. They would have done it in, probably Portugal even at that point. I don't know. But no one put it all in the U.S. We were an emerging market back then. All right, so we just had to come to dominance. Those days are over, man, in terms of the U.S. in the next 100 years dominance. It's not happening. So you better not pretend like U.S. is the returns of the last 100 years in the U.S. is going to be happening again in the United States. It could, but I think it's silly to do that. So I like that they did that. They changed for longevity. I don't have any qualm with that, but it's not that big of a deal. But they didn't do the most obvious, which is where all the data is in terms of the validation that you don't have an inflation-adjusted spending. I just don't know why I just don't know why these guys don't get this. Where is the evidence of inflation-adjusted spending? Where is it, man? It's just not there. And to keep harking on this, or harping, I guess I just don't understand it. It's silly to me. But anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. If you're going to change the rules of the 4% rule because evidence suggests you were missing some things, which I agree. Why do you not change the rules of the 4% rule with a blindingly obvious evidence of spending patterns for retirees? I just don't get it. It's at the point now I'm like, why have I been paying any of these guys, these professors and institutions? It doesn't make sense. It's kind of like at the healthy diet stuff. At some point, you got to recognize that a high fat red meat, bacon, eggs are good, and all the other crap is bad. At some point, you have to say getting people to eat margarine instead of butter, getting people off eggs, getting people off bacon, getting people off red meat was bad, and getting people on low fat, high sugar was bad for people. And I just, it's weird that they're still using the same, the same food group thing in financial planning relative to inflation adjusted spending. I don't get it, man. But I will. Maybe I will. I'll share with you this thing to end here. Post this in my community tab on my YouTube channel, and I'll just read you from this book. Ooh, don't break my glasses. Beauchamp versus Pasteur, a lost chapter in the history of biology. We're going to go to page 340. And this is classic. And this is by Ethel D. Hume. You got to get books, dudes. Books, not freaking electronic stuff. Fashions in medicine, like fashions in clothes, change from generation to generation. In fact, we have lots of evidence that it takes about 2 generations. So the first generation, we get people to adhere, and the next generation will follow what the last generation said, if that makes sense. So basically what the thing is, it takes basically 2 generations to convince the world that there is no God, to convince the world that whatever you want to convince the world is. Because the first generation is new, then they take power, and then they convince the following generations. But then those people die off, and a new group of people come in with new ideas. It's very interesting, actually. That's what makes it so weird about the Darwin theory of why Darwin has been so strong for so long. It's not because it's proven, it's certainly not proven. It's starting to be more and more aggression towards the Darwinistic principles, which is good, but it's taken a long time. A lot longer than it should, actually. Is interesting. Well, we know because there is the globalist evil cabal. They basically don't like humanity, and if we can push Darwinism on people, that will destroy humanity, and that's what they're trying to do. It's all satanic. I get my glass on, but anyway. All right, so fashions change from generation to generation, and it is as difficult for a medical man to break away from the one as it is for a society belle to free herself from the trammels of the other. Independence of income as well as independence of intellect is needed for a man to set aside dogma. Independence of income as well as independence of intellect is needed for a man to set aside dogma. Oh, what a great saying. If the desired goal is the attainment of worldly ambition, unquestioning adherence to orthodoxy is the price that must be paid. That is I just got to read that again. Independence of income as well as the independence of intellect is needed for a man to set aside dogma. If the desired goal is the attainment of worldly ambition, unquestioning adherence to orthodoxy is the price that must be paid. So long as the discovery of a microbe may result in a medical knighthood and the discovery of a vaccine may result in a comfortable income, no one need be surprised at the continuing popularity of the germ theory and its consequent system of inoculations. So it's going to take a generation or 2 to recover the insanity of the idea of inflation-adjusted spending. There's a guy, obviously Ty Bernicki, I've talked about him a million times. There's a couple guys previous to him. I don't even know those guys off the top of my head. I can't remember. They started the ball, and the ball is gaining steam. It's a wonderful thing to behold, man, because more and more people are seeing the light. COVID helped actually with that. I'll tell you that, because COVID people said, I'm silent quitting, essentially. And I just, look, man, it is what it is. Talking later today, just it is what it is. And she's like, look, I don't even hate my job. I'm getting old. I'm burnt out. I said, no, understood. She goes, I just never thought I could do it until I came across your videos. I said, but what, it's funny too, because she had spending, basically she input her spending incorrectly at $6,000 a month plus healthcare, plus her mortgage, plus taxes. And I said, so basically you're spending $8,300. No, it's about $9,000 a month. She goes, nah, I don't even spend that now. And I said, okay, well, that's what you put. She goes, well, that's not right. So we actually, and I knew that was going to be right. So what we did is we said her all-inclusive spending was $6,000 a month. That's for everything. So we dropped it from $9,000 a month basically to $6,000 a month. And that even included a lot of wiggle room for travel, which normally I would separate that for, because you're not going to travel when you're 90. But anyway, I didn't in this case, just for simplicity. And she went from a 15% probability to 100%. And I said, and we only had her at 2.8% rate of return because most of her stuff was in bonds and cash. Anyway. And I still even have her spending each and every year just for inflation, except for 10 years it goes down by 10%, just for inflation, and except the next 10 years it goes down by 10%. And I'm just sitting there thinking, and she was thinking that there's no way she could do it because she and her husband both went for messy divorces, and they had to basically start from scratch, not that long ago. And yet you just, anyway. All right, love your thoughts. We'll see you. Thanks for sending this, us a boss.